David Shelley, CEO of Hachette Book Group, on our leadership podcast to learn what makes David a leader. And
Thank you for having me.
thank you, sir. And right out of the gate, British, UK background, you're here in New York. Have you noticed anything different in how business is run between the two?
It's a great question. I think I'm constantly struck by both the similarities and the differences.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of style. What I'd say is the things I've noticed are kind of stylistic differences. So again, this is kind of broad brush cliches, but New Yorkers are very direct, as you know, like get to the point,
Oh,
in a hurry, kind of get out of my way. It's a fast moving city. And I think New York is really different to a lot. I've been around lots of other bits of the US and we've got offices elsewhere, but New York feels very distinct in that way. I kind of like, and Britain is quite an indirect country, I would say, in terms of communication. People hedge around things. They take a little while to get to the point. And maybe I am in my answer now, but in New York, I'm not, so the style is like, you need to be very direct. That's how business is done. Things move quickly. People move quickly. People don't have time to mess around. But in terms of business, I would say it's surprisingly similar. Like I'm obviously working the book business. The book businesses in the US and the UK are pretty similar. The
okay.
principles are pretty similar. We've got, some different retailers, some bit of a different landscape, but it's broadly very, very, very similar.
And your career has been publishing, if I'm reading this correctly.
Correct.
Do you think leading in the world of publishing, communication, getting that word out, that message out, creates a different style of leadership, maybe more openness? I don't know. I'm hypothesizing only.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of industries where I probably wouldn't be a very effective leader or a very good leader. And who knows if I am in publishing or not, but I think book publishing tends to be a lot of very wordy people,
Okay.
smart people who are interested in nuance or kind of delving into things. It's not a, I've got friends who obviously work in lots of other industries. I think each industry has its own sort of flavor and its own character. I think in book publishing, I think one reason maybe I'm affecting book publishing is because I love the product. Like I love books. I grew up on books. That books are made me who I am. And I think when you have passion for a subject, then that makes you a good leader in that field. I think I would not be I'm quite a passionate person in my own way. I would not be a good leader in a field that I was not passionate about.
You've always been passionate about books. That's always been your. When it came to becoming a leader, was there any book? This is cliche, but I have to ask it. Any book that really inspired you? And you must be at 100 times though, so I don't know if I'm.
No, I love that question. I mean, there's a few books actually. There's a book, I don't know if you know it, this book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. And this was the book that we published it. And it's basically, it introduced the concept of growth mindset.
Okay.
So this concept, I don't know if you're familiar with this, that there are
I'm familiar
people.
with growth mindset, yeah.
Yeah. So like she introduced this concept that there are some people who have a fixed mindset and they don't tend to learn from things and they don't tend to, and that can limit them. And then there are some people who have a growth mindset, which means the ability to learn from success or failure and to confront those things and to ask yourself some hard questions.
What have you learned from any failures or not you've had, switching your experience from being a man of the UK to the man of the Big Apple? What have you learned?
I think it's a really good question. I've had lots and lots of things I've learned. I think principally actually of, I think I could have asked a lot more questions about, but particularly about going back to that theme of communication.
Mm,
There's a lot of things that I took it as read when I came over here, that a lot of the techniques that I've used in the past that have worked really, really well for me in the UK would work over here. And it's taken me, I've been here 20 months, taken me close on that to think, actually, no, those things that served me really well will not serve me really well. I actually need to learn some wholly new communication skills and just do things different. And it's hard, I'm 49 years old. It's hard to learn some new things, but I think I would definitely, if I were to come back here, if I were to turn back the clock, come back here again, I would make a lot more effort in terms of learning some new communication techniques.
I love that we got right into growth mindset because I've had a theory that when you're starting your career, you don't know anything. Halfway through your career, you know everything. And then there's another stage where you realize it's better to have a failure and learn from it. I mean, is that kind of your mindset now? Like, yeah, I made some mistakes in this stage, so be it. I gotta learn from it at this point.
I mean, I think I read somewhere, I don't know how true this is, that if you're a good leader, about 70% of the calls you make are good ones and 30% are bad ones. And I think there's some truth in that. If I look back on my career, there's a lot of things that I feel, yeah, that was good. I'm proud of that. And there's a lot of things where I think, oh, that didn't go the way I wanted. Or if I'd approached it in that way, it might have gone a lot better. So I feel like, and I feel like I mean, the reason the mindset book resonated with me, I love learning, and it can be scary. I think it can be scary sometimes acknowledging to oneself that was a failure. And I think that's one thing that humans do quite a lot, is they kind of defend their failures. Like, well, that wasn't my failure. That was someone else's failure. That wasn't really a failure at all, blah, blah, blah. That was actually a success dressed up as a failure. And I think the best thing often you can do is like, that was a failure. That didn't work. But onwards, like, let's learn from that. Like, how would I do that differently? But I kind of own it.
No, I like it because I think failure challenge creates leadership. Actually, myself have always been inspired using a UK reference when the Beatles were recording. I want to say it was the White Album. They just tried everything. They didn't care. Like recording Revolution, John was lying down on the floor, I read, and I found that fascinating. Here's the challenge. I want it to sound like X. How can I achieve that? Maybe I have to lie on the floor. And I feel like a leader is sometimes we're scared to try things. We're scared to fail. We're scared to have an attempt. Yeah. Sorry, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And there's definitely a lot of, I mean, I guess for me, a lot of successes and failures are around people. Like, the way it works in publishing, it's a bit like the music industry. You have like different labels or like different imprints, and each one has a sort of different leader and a different theme that they publish on, or a different ethos. And I've set up lots of these in my time, and some of them have gone really well, and some of them have not gone really well. Some of them have gone badly, and often, but it's not. You have to try. You have to give people that opportunity, and you often don't know until you do it how that's going to go, how that label's going to progress. Is it going to be an iconic imprint that
Yeah.
publishes really successful books, or not? And often I think it's really important. It's really important to try those things.
I find it to be a challenge at times to encourage your team to try the things. And one of the arguments I had with the board of directors that was on was I said, I'm quite happy if the team scores a B. Just they did it, they tried their best, good idea. How do you get your team to try and be okay if you fail? It's okay. I'm not going to beat you on this one.
I think it's really important as a leader to model failure and to talk about it, and to
Yeah, I
own it.
love it.
And I've done emails to the whole company saying, here are some times that I failed. This is an example of something I got really badly wrong. And you can't, my own personal feeling is you kind of have to do that, because you, as people, look up to anyone who's a leader, and they take their lead from that. So if as a leader, you're not talking about your own failures, no one's going to talk about theirs. So for me, and it's still hard. It's hard in an environment like this, because a big corporation, across the US and UK, we're 3,500 people. It's quite hard for someone to put their hand up and say, "Oh, I failed at something,"
Yeah.
or "I'm going to put myself in a position where I might fail."
Or
Uh,
vulnerability in and of
it's
itself.
vulnerability, exactly.
That could be a real challenge and must be I think it's also admitting it. Like, it must be scary for you because it's scary for everybody to say, "I failed at this."
I think actually that's another interest. It's another interesting cultural thing. I think it's easier in the UK than it is in the US, certainly in New York.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Just
I,
we're
I,
the
I
best. We're the best
the
at
best,
everything.
the best. Like, I think, in lots of good ways, like, this is a society that's about winners,
Yeah,
and New York is about winning,
yeah.
which makes talk of failure quite difficult.
So, it's funny, and I didn't think but I love this conversation where it's gone into growth mindset and open about failure because there's something about failure, especially in the New York culture, like I said, we're a winning culture. You're winning. But if you don't attempt it, so like people know I speak a few languages, but if I didn't start it at first, I wouldn't get conversational. You have to make yourself the fool at the restaurant to order in French or Spanish or Italian to be able to do so. But I do think that creates the growth mindset, the failure or the attempt,
Yeah.
say.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and certainly in book publishing, I think what happens often is a book is published. Always, I would say, when we publish a book, we're all hoping for it to succeed.
Yeah.
Often it doesn't, and what can be really valuable is actually to have like a wash-up meeting, 6 months or
What do you
so.
call that? A wash-up meeting?
Yeah,
I
maybe
like
that's a
it.
British expression, a wash-up, like a sort of reflection
Yeah,
on
no, I get it. I love it.
that meeting. So yeah, we'd call it a wash up, like kind of what went well, what could have gone better. And I think because of this, antipathy towards failure or talking about it, often people won't do that. They'll just be like, let's forget that ever happened, let's move on. But if you
Yeah.
have that wash up meeting, then often really valuable things come from it. Like, could we have published that at a different time of year? We have given it a different cover? Could we have done something different on the marketing? Like, when we're doing that author's next book, should we try this rather than that? And from my experience, often that sort of soul searching that you need to do that really helps you to have a better chance of success next time.
I love it and I agree because it does frustrate me. I'll have people I advise say, and I'm online marketing and digital marketing. What's the plan for the next year? And I look at them like, the internet changes so quickly. I don't know yet. Like, you have to try and learn. And at times, you don't know, I think, what your second decision might be based on the success or failure of that first attempt. And there's a vulnerability there at times.
I think, yeah. So I think vulnerability is one thing. And then I think the other thing is my experience of large organizations is there can be a sort of stasis or a paralysis or need for things to have committee backing
Yeah.
or whatever. And that often, the interesting thing that often doesn't come from the top, and I've talked to other leaders about this, often leaders will be sort of like, let's try this, let's do this. And then there's this sort of collective, and I think it's the flip side of having really good systems and processes sometimes can be that those systems and processes, people are so used to working with them that it can make you not that fleet of foot, if that makes sense.
I agree. But I'm also thinking how often you find people set up their processes and they're rigid on it because you can't fail. And in the process, you're not trying that new thing that you discovered along the way. You, as a leader, you're supposed to say, David, this is my, what do you call it, 5-year plan. You're in publishing with AI, with digital. Like, when you have those factors of all these moving pieces, I think it's a disingenuous to, no, it's not honest to say, yes, I have a plan for 5 years. How dare you, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, isn't it? I think in any industry right now to say I've got a 5-year plan feels ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah.
you can have an aspiration and you can have a dream but the world is changing so rapidly. And I think I would say one really good thing about book publishing, maybe not that known from outside, is we have actually been weirdly agile. We have adapted over the years to various different technologies and different ebooks, audiobooks being downloaded, piracy online. Like, it's been an industry that's adapted very well, but we've had to move quickly. And right now as well, we don't know what's going to be thrown at us in the next 5 years. So I completely agree. You could look a few months down the track, a year down the track, maybe 2 years, 3 years possibly, but 5 years, who knows?
Well, then that's same with, 30, 60, 90-day plan you'll hear when you start a new organization. I kind of always feel the request in and of itself can be problematic. Why are you asking me to set up for 90 at day 0 when I don't even know what the next 24 hours are going to bring me? I have a general direction I'm walking. I'm sailing east from New York to London, but I don't know which route the water will take me.
I think people are all different, obviously, aren't they? And I personally tend to be very intuitive, very driven by my own intuition.
Yeah.
And so definitely I remember when I started, actually, I don't know if this is a UK thing, there was this whole thing of like 100 days, your first 100 days and blah,
Yeah.
blah. But there were some things that, like, on day 2, I knew what I wanted to do. And there were some things that took till day 400. Yeah. And I think also we can sometimes, as managers or leaders, be hidebound by this is what you're meant to be doing, or this is how you're meant to make these decisions. And I think sometimes some of the best decisions I've made have been just really by listening to my gut and ignoring some of that stuff. And some of the worst decisions I've made have been by thinking, well, I have to operate within this sort of framework that we're all meant to operate in, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And as a leader, I'm also thinking you are not only have to, someone said once, you not only have to lead everyone below you, you have to lead sometimes above you because everyone answers to somebody. You presumably have a board of directors or whatever. And now, how do you get them to buy into the mindset of, hey guys, I just figured this out? Like, it doesn't mean I'm not a strong leader though. There's that balance, I feel like.
I mean, again, I feel, I suppose, quite fortunate that people I report into or that the company have are very strong in creative industries. So I think, again, you can't operate successfully in creative industries without some of that, sort of, we're going this way, now now we need to go that way. And I don't know enough about sort of lots of other sectors to know if that's the case everywhere. Maybe it's probably very different in, I don't know, aerospace or engineering or something like that, where you have to, I guess, have a quite a long, sort of firm long-term plan. But definitely pivoting in creative industries, pivoting is one of the strong. If you don't pivot, often you die.
Yeah.
I think I feel fortunate to be in a wider organization that really understands that you have to keep pivoting.
Creative industries, the other challenge to me becomes you have to rein in the most creative individuals sometimes. You're saying, here's the freedom to push it. Like there was someone on my team, oh my goodness, she would talk for 45 minutes. And I'd be like, so what you're saying is you want to try X. You don't have to paint a picture about it, write a song about it, write a poem about it. I feel like you get that already from the nodding of your head. How do you encourage it, but also say, take it in, a little pragmatism would help right now.
It's one of the things that I love. And, one of the things I love about my job, like getting up every day, going to work, is the mix of people that we have. And I always see it as a sort of yin and yang type thing.
Yeah, yeah.
It says, some of the best publishing that we do, some of the best teams that we have are this wonderful mixture of really creative individuals and then individuals who are brilliant at process and brilliant at, what you call keeping the trains on the tracks.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of, and actually, and you can't, and it's this great, and sometimes it is a tension, but a healthy tension. You need both of those things. Like I've seen teams that are too weighted towards the creative and then everything, nothing happens on time. This goes wrong, that goes wrong. And then teams that are too process driven. If you have this perfect tension, and I'm sure this applies to a lot of other creative industries too. I'm sure if I talk to someone in the music business or film business, it's the same. It's that, those brilliant creatives and then the brilliant process people who are like, right, this is how we make your vision happen. And for me, that's the joy of it. When something goes really well in publishing, it's because those two teams have been working really well together.
No, I agree. And I think that's with all creative industries. I mentioned the Beatles because I'm from the UK, and I was thinking how the George Martin, the producer, was forced to say, this is your vision.
Yes.
Boys, let's go back and record again.
Yeah.
If I think they wouldn't have been them if not for him.
That's a
being,
perfect,
you know,
what a
up.
perfect example. I think I love that. Yeah. Yeah. It's true. It's true. You need all that. And it's not stuff you see. It's not stuff you see or hear, but it makes the thing happen.
No, I actually got called out by my right hand recently because one of the things I try to do is say, talk to me. I'll leave it very open. Just talk to me. What's going on? And I'm trying to encourage that dialogue, that openness, creativity. What ideas do you have? Do you have any other ideas? I'm stumped. Is there any particulars you do to help be that producer of the album, if you will? Because that's your job, is to produce all this madness at that point.
I mean, I suppose what I try and do, what I've learned, I've done this sort of CEO role in the UK and here for about 8 years now. What I've learned, I suppose, in that time is my influence can only be at best quite indirect.
Yeah.
And to really directly influence things is quite hard because, and I like to give people ownership of things anyway. I'm not the person who will micromanage. What I do try and do is we've got this like mission. Our mission is to make it easy for everyone to discover new worlds of ideas, learning, entertainment, and opportunity. And we've got pillars that support that with 4 pillars. And I feel that's my job, is to kind of put those out into the ether in the organization, keep talking about them, encourage others to talk about them, and to have a sort of common language we can all speak. that then at least points people in the direction of this is what good looks like. Good looks like achieving our mission, which is basically reaching as many readers or
Yeah.
consumers as we can with as much stuff, and then sort of pointing people like this is what good looks like. These are some tools at your disposal to do it, and I hope, I mean, on my best days, providing an environment that feels free and not too stultifying and not too corporate, and then just allow. I feel a lot of it is just allowing people to be themselves and to do their best work.
There's also on the other I feel like you're in a balancing act. Like, if you let the creative go too far, you find that person who's like, "I just signed on an AI writer who wrote the whole book with ChatGPT on a Tuesday." You're like, "No, not that far. Take it in again." Your job, it sounds like, almost becomes coach, mentor, balancing act person there at that point. Trapezoid.
Well, I think making sure almost that there's the right level of yin and yang in the organization. That we actually want a company we acquired a few years ago in the UK. The founder of the company was this is a very British aristocratic thing, but he was like a hunting, shooting, fishing guy.
Okay.
Um, and he said to me, well, he said in hunting, it's the same as in a company. You need your wild ducks and your tame ducks. And so his point was, you need the ducks that are kind of going all over the place, but you also need the ducks that are more stable. And you can't have to, it's got to be the right balance. So for me, it's like, as an organization, we can't be too chaotic, but we need to be just about chaotic enough, because if you're not chaotic enough, then the chaos is where a lot of the magic happens.
I agree.
And you can't be a good. I haven't seen a good creative business without that sort of creative magic.
I've actually had a job conversation interview where the guy looked at me and said, "There's only one Dennis Rodman on a basketball team. One crazy Dennis Rodman tattooed everywhere. And you're a Dennis Rodman and I'm a Dennis Rodman. So even though I think you're better than me, I cannot have you in this organization." And I was actually struck in a way by the brilliance of the
Mhm.
identification. He's like, "No, I just can't have two of that. I just need to have one of that. And unless I drop dead," identifying who the people are at times.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I think for book publishing as well, we're working for writers, we're working for authors. So we can have a certain amount of personality. People who work for us can
Yeah.
have a certain, but really the authors are the stars, and they are what they are. We don't have a business without them. We live and breathe authors. That's
Yeah.
why I got into the business. That's why we all got into the business. So to some extent, it's a particular type of creativity that's almost like a sort of type of empathy, I'd say,
Yeah.
about understanding authors, understanding what they want, understanding what they need from us, understanding how best to serve them. So I'd say a lot of the great creative people I work with in book publishing are probably more low key than the people you might work with in, I don't know, another industry, because you have to be necessarily, it's really important to be understanding what the authors want.
No, and it sounds though like another part of your job as a leader is to get a quick read of that person. You have to say, like, in fact, we did our prep call, getting a quick read of each other. And you almost require that because you might say, what, this guy's good, but this is too far. This person's not empathetic or too, or whatever. How much are you doing that every day at that point?
I mean, I think, well, again, it would be interesting, wouldn't it, getting a panel of leaders together? I reckon in any industry, that's like 90% of any leadership role is people, understanding people, having a read on people, because ultimately you're not. I remember someone saying to me, and it's always kind of stayed with me, he was like, actually, you're doing your job well if you're not making many decisions. If you're hardly making any decisions, you're doing your job well, because that means you've hired people who are good at making good decisions. And that I think is the thing. And that's what I always try and keep in my mind. I need to be really sure about who the key people are and what the yeah.
I used to say the CEO has put himself out of work because if you're in work, you're the wrong person. But, I've also felt I've advised a lot of CEOs, and the ones that have been the worst are, to me, so focused on the product. Not that you should always focus on the product. We sold 400,000 books. That's great. I'm so proud of you. There has to know the people behind selling the book. And it's not simply the metrics, but how you accomplish those metrics, to me, are bigger deliverables.
Yeah, and I think there's also, and again, I'm sure this is true in any industry, like how people show up every day
Yeah.
is really, really important. And I suppose, well, yeah, one thing I've learned, I mean, it's, another good book, actually, No Asshole Rule. I don't know if you know
Yeah,
that book.
I've had a quote to me, yes.
I mean, you know, and without going into detail, like I've learned the hard way over assholes can sometimes be very talented, but
Different personalities make it all work.
but sometimes can damage an organization. So it's like where I suppose, yeah, there's also what behaviors actually are damaging, even if there's someone who's a great individual contributor.
It's funny, I had an organization I ran, and there was one person who was very much that type, and one who was very quiet, and one who was very organized. And I said, the problem is the second, if I'm not keeping balance as the head of the circus, that a-hole personality will be a time bomb onto this, and the quiet person will this, and it inevitably, 2 minutes later, you watch the show implode. And I see that
Yeah,
a lot in organizations.
yeah. I mean, actually, the other one I was thinking of was like a conductor of an orchestra. That's kind of what you're doing. You're not really doing anything. You're not playing an instrument. You've just got
I
these
mean,
stick.
don't tell conductors this, but yeah.
No, but like, but if a conductor isn't brilliant, then one bit of the orchestra will get really loud, another will be too quiet, one will be too fast, one will be too slow. Like you kind of need to be sort of in a strange way drawing everything together, but without really making a noise yourself.
I agree 100% because then if you become the star, then like, why aren't you just doing a cello solo like Yo-Yo Ma and just get over there and do it? And if you're not balancing everyone, they're attacking each other at that point.
And I've definitely learned the hard way. There are some things where I think, well, I actually did make a decision about that and I did overrule someone and that was the wrong thing to do. So there have been some things where I've said, no, I think we should do this. And then afterwards, I think, no, that was wrong. I should have let that person make that decision for themselves because that's what I believe. You know, I believe in that. And yeah, but it's tempting, I think, sometimes because if one's got a strong opinion, then
Yeah.
but I've learned. I've learned or I'm learning to just, even if I disagree with someone, to kind of maybe ask some questions, challenge, but sit back.
That's my line. My line in the sand is a B minus. If it's a B or a B plus or A, go for it. But if it's a B minus or under, then I'll go, I don't, what other ideas might there be? But if it's passable and I could kind of move it up, then they're going to own it. They're going to take that B idea they had and move it to an A, hopefully.
And sometimes I would argue to you, sometimes even if someone's got a C minus idea, it's sometimes worth saying, look, have you considered this and that? And they're still like, I love my C minus idea, letting them go with it because my experience as well, they will often learn a hell of a lot by doing the C minus.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I can see that because you also need them to learn a little bit too. I shouldn't have done that. What do you think? I think you learned something. That's great. God bless you. You did it.
And I know in the past, I mean, this is maybe just thinking, I really don't like being told what to do.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and when I think back to examples in the past, I think the ones that stick out are where someone above me has told me what to do. I've never, even if I thought, well, yeah, maybe that they were right and I was wrong, but I never liked it and I probably never learned from it.
I think actually those are the best bosses. My best boss, Ed, he said, "Oh, what are you interested in?" "I'm interested in programming computers." "Go for it. Try learning how to program what we're doing." "Oh, you're interested in stock trades? Here's the book. Read the darn book." And like, it was tangential at times to the original goal, but then you're encouraged to take that idea and run with it.
I think there's also that thing in leadership that one of the bits I enjoy the most is when I see someone's got extra drive or capacity or hunger
Yeah.
and being like, I think, you know, that person is ready to do more. And then kind of being like, what else do you want to do? What else could you do? Or sometimes just being like, what about this thing? And they're like, what? Like, I didn't. And it's like, yeah. And that is really nice when you see that person take that thing, do brilliantly with it and keep growing.
I never would have expected the start of this call. We would be going to growth mindset of leadership. But I feel like I've learned something from this call, just this conversation. So I'm really enjoyed
Well, I'm enjoying
the
it.
reflection of this all. No, thank you. David, I've learned a little more about myself, what I'm doing right and wrong. A little more reminder of what I'm doing wrong, a reminder of what I'm doing right sometimes.
And I've learned something about the Beatles. So, and I
No, thank you.